Hello and welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen of the 128th District in Berks and Lancaster counties. Joining me today is Gregg Eshelman, owner of Eshelman Transportation in Moton. We'll be discussing school bus safety and the use of video and audio recording on buses. Gregg, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
It says you live in Moton, the Moton Postal District.
As you're well aware of, Moton probably encompasses 45 square, 50 square miles. My home base is Plowville, Pennsylvania, which is in southern Berks County.
And it's a village, and it's unincorporated.
Right.
Yeah.
An unincorporated village, but we have our own identity, and we're real proud of it.
And we both live in Robinson Town.
Absolutely. We're both real proud of that, too.
Very much so. You live in a rather special place in the county. It's rural, but it's really accessible. We took at 176 to Turnpike 422.
We have great infrastructure. We have pretty near all we need. We have local farms, produce farms, and we have shopping within. My wife will attest to the shopping in Berks County.
She's way too close to the outlets in the malls.
She's the purchasing agent in the family.
She is. Oh, yeah. I'm going to remember that. I have 5 daughters. Purchasing agent.
Right. That's almost their title anymore.
And procurement is done with credit card?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, amongst the many things you do, you're in transportation.
Right.
You're in the bus business. How did that all happen?
Our family's been in the bus business. I'm generation 3. And my son's following me up, Preston, he's generation 4. So we have a long history. My grandfather started with one bus in approximately late 30s, 1940, when high school became
regionalized,
more of a option. You know, we had a number of one-room schools, and he transported with we have a picture of it's like a 1941 Chevy bus with about 12 seats in it that he transported to like Birdsboro High School and Morgantown High School.
Wow.
So he started with one. Up until the 50s, middle 50s, they had, I think, about 3 or 4 buses then in the middle 50s. And in the middle 50s is when school districts formed jointures, and I guess that's when they closed as many one-room schools as they could, build a central high school, and that created a need for transportation. My father picked up the ball then and ran with it. We did the Twin Valley District for years, which we still do to this day. And then as things developed, opportunities became available, and we've expanded our presence in Berks County. Since then, we have presently 4 districts in Berks County that we do.
The need grows. The distances seem to be larger in terms of transporting students, and the vehicles have changed dramatically.
Oh my gosh, yeah, very dramatically. Yes, it's become an industry. You know, before it was. It's become an industry, and with regulations and safety's our business, basically. And so they've come a long way, and continue to go a long way. There's a lot of people that look at the industry, and if something makes sense, believe me, they'll do it very quickly on a school bus.
My children don't often get on a school bus, but they were on one recently relative to a camp experience. And I asked them what happened. Well, actually, my 7-year-old was the first person I was asking questions about what happened in camp. You know, she's going to a day camp, and all. The first thing she told me was, I got to ride this huge school bus. It's pretty big, and it's pretty safe.
Right. The reason I smile is because we're, like the kindergarten, the younger kids and the grade school kids, they love the bus. It's almost, they anticipate riding the bus. I think, and the teachers will disagree with me, but I think they anticipate riding the bus more than they do going to school. They love the bus. And in fact, some of my nieces and nephews, I've given them their own private bus ride, and they love that, you know. But they do. So they anticipate the bus.
And it's one of the safest forms of transportation as it exists today.
That is the most documented transportation studies around. I have facts and figures I read. It's 15 times safer than your car. It's the safest form of ground transportation there is. And the whole industry should be proud of that, in fact. A lot of contributing factors that make it safe.
Everything's safer than my '94 Buick, but I realize this is a whole lot safer than anything that's out on the highway. And the reasons seem to be obvious: size, visibility, general respect for the bus on the highway. It is elevated, typically above the crash line, and so when an episode occurs, the children are secure.
I think that like the first thing about the bus is the visibility, and the color. So we all know if it's big and yellow, it's a school bus. So that alerts people, and people slow down. You know, they respect the bus. They know the bus is going to stop to pick up children. So that color is even a registered color. It's National School Bus Yellow Chrome is what it is. And so every bus starts life as the same color. It's the people who make them into campers later on in life or you know, would change the color. But that National School Bus Chrome is a identifying factor. You know, and we've progressed now, you know, like strobe lights. I'm sure some of the viewers have seen, I get calls every now and then, what's the white light on the bus? They think that, you know, it's a warning light, that something's wrong. And that whole deal is just about visibility.
Okay.
Foggy mornings, you know, it's very helpful.
And in our area of the county, fog is not unusual at all.
In the river.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely, and I'm not far from there.
Right.
The big bus that we just described is not the only vehicle that would pull up to a stop for children. You have smaller vehicles, you have smaller vans, and state laws are somewhat different, particularly with railroad crossing, as it applies to the vans.
That's correct.
How so?
Well, that's correct. Like the large bus and the mini, what we call mini bus, which would be like a 30 passenger. They're all basically under the same constraints. You know, when the bus has the 8-light warning system, it's a school bus, okay, and all the traffic laws, you know, railroad stops and such are the same for those units, minibus and large bus. Then what we call, the layman calls vans, we call school vehicles, and basically that's like a club wagon style. It's a van type vehicle with no 8-light warning system on it. Now it'll have the markings on it, school students and either a district name on the side or a contractor's name on the side. But they're 9 passengers or less, and that's legislation that was just changed. You know, in my tenure here, we started doing that transportation. And typically they're used for like more of a remote situation, like if you have a couple kids that are maybe going to a private school that's out of the district or an alternative edge school where it doesn't make sense to run a full-size bus.
And those smaller vans do not have to stop under current law as they're crossing railroad
that's correct.
area. And could the case be made it's safer to just keep them moving?
It could, yeah, that's people aren't looking for them to stop. We've had a couple incidences, even with a large bus, where we stop at a railroad track and somebody, either a driver who could be distracted or just doesn't expect that, they're not expecting us to stop at a railroad track.
Everybody else keeps going.
Right, and even in our county, there's been a couple crossings that have been made that were crossings on major highways, like say Route 61 up there at the Glengarry plant.
The brick plant, right.
At the brick plant. That's an exempt crossing now. It's labeled, so buses don't have to stop there. There was incidences already where buses stopped, and that's a 4-lane highway. People aren't expecting that. And a lot of like out-of-town travelers use that. That now we don't, and that crossing's not used, so we don't stop there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was a special exemption that was required to waive
big-
the stopping.
It wasn't taken lightly.
I'm sure.
Believe me, well studied, and you know, they're basically, like we've had instances where the tracks are removed, okay, like the rail line gets removed, but the crossing stays in place, okay, so we continue to stop there per law, but yet the tracks are only in the street, you know, until, you know, and it might be a couple years till they pull those out of there and stuff. But back to your point, a van or a school vehicle type, the public might not be expecting them to stop at that
because
crossing.
it's marked on the van, but they don't have the stop gates,
Right,
the bells and whistles, and all the
lights.
flashing lights.
Yeah, correct.
Certainly state legislators as well as owners of companies like yours are always looking for ways to make the transportation even safer than it already is. We've seen bills come up about seat belts. What are your thoughts on that, the logistics making that happen on a bus?
That's a well-studied safety item in a bus, well-studied, and at every level. Local level, state level, and the federal level. And the National Highway Transportation
Safety
Administration, their latest report on that, and they're the professionals on it, that the bus has been designed for compartmentalization over the past years, which means we're creating the ideal environment for students to ride safely in by fully padded seats. I'm sure maybe when you rode the bus, they had the big metal bar on the back of the seat that I'm sure several people lost their front teeth or broke a lip on that. So we have a fully padded seat now. The seat backs have gotten higher. So we're creating an environment, a fully padded compartment for the student. And with the safety record of buses, their studies have shown that seatbelts could hinder the general population with, and part of the problem, Mark, is we're holding a lot of different size student in the same vehicle. We go from kindergarten to high school, okay? So we go from what, 25, 30 pounds to whatever. You know, some big football players nowadays, and we're sitting them in a 39-inch wide seat. So we're accommodating all that, and there's a lot of trouble to do that with lap belts, you know, to accommodate all that different size person in there. And I agree with this study. Our company history, the history of the industry has been, you know, when we maximum load count on one of our buses, 72 children, in the event that you want to evacuate the bus, seatbelts could also be a hindrance on there.
As in the case of an accident, fire, water hazard, etc.
Exactly. And believe me, that's studied all the time. And up to now, they have not come up with an option, you know, that makes that practical.
Hold your thought.
Okay.
Let's take a quick break. Legislative report will return in a moment.
Did you know that Act 16 of 1999 honors one of the greatest leaders in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives? The Matthew J. Ryan Legislative Office Building, once known as the Capitol Annex, is located next to the main Capitol building and honors the late Speaker of the House, Matthew J. Ryan. Those who visit this building will observe the magnificent architectural designs providing eloquence and grandeur to the building. Known as one of the greatest members in the history of the Pennsylvania State House, Matthew Ryan started his career in the legislature in 1963 and was elected Speaker in 1981. His charisma and knowledge will forever be reflected in the building now named after this great legislative leader. Now you know.
Did you know that Violet Oakley was the first female artist to receive a large commission for artwork done in a United States Capitol building? In 1902, Joseph Houston, designer and architect for the 3rd Harrisburg Capitol building, commissioned Violet Oakley to paint murals for the governor's reception room. He believed that Oakley's contribution would add interest to the building and act as an encouragement of women of the state. Prior to beginning her work for the Capitol, Oakley set out to England to conduct research for her murals. Upon return, she decided to center her artwork on William Penn and the founding of Pennsylvania. Oakley made sure that Penn's ideals of justice and peace could be seen throughout her work. In 1906, she completed 13 murals titled The Founding of the State of Liberty Spiritual and was placed in sequential order around the governor's reception room. These murals were some of the first to be installed in the Capitol. When Edwin Austin Abbey, another artist for the Capitol, died in 1911, Oakley was offered another opportunity to create murals for the unfinished Senate and Supreme Court chambers. Her work on the Senate murals, including International Understanding, was completed by 1919. Oakley then completed the Supreme Court murals, including the Divine Law, by 1927. Oakley is said to be the principal artist for the Capitol with a total of 43 murals on display. She remains one of the greatest muralists in the United States. Now you know.
Welcome back to the program. My guest is Gregg Eshelman, owner of Eshelman Transportation in Moton. Thanks again. We're talking about bus safety, which is important to all of us, and we had a legislative change recently. I think it enhances safety in general. By the way, you and I have had this conversation relative, in my youth, I was a school bus driver. I think I was going to community college. I was just doing this on the side, and I think I would have liked to have some of the additional observation tools. I can't be spending a lot of time, and no driver can, with what's going on behind him. You want to spend the preponderance of your time what's happening in front of you. Certainly there are mirror views that you have to take. But we added audio taping to the toolbox recently. How did that work for you?
It's working terrific. Our company is in the process now of actually installing the audio video in our buses. The technology has gotten a lot better. The short history of that is our company was actually in a class action lawsuit several years ago where council decided that we were violating the Pennsylvania wiretap law by recording conversations in a bus. And so it went through the whole legal system, and the legal system purged us of that. But it was quite an education. So working with, you know, yourself and the Pennsylvania School Bus Association and numerous legislators, we finally got the bill passed where the audio was allowed in the school bus, and it's been a great help. We just want to solve our problems, and by having that tape, you can go to it. It protects the technology today in most buses. You'll have a camera, audio camera, facing on the bulkhead that faces back. Captures the students, the front of the bus, one in the back facing front, captures the back of the bus, and also one above the driver, which records the driver, their actions, and also the door, because the door's a vulnerable security point for us on the bus. It's the technology, you know how it goes. It's changing so quick and getting better all the time. We can also tie in to that same system and mount what they call a stop arm camera. Because we were going to talk about that a little bit if we have time, about
Go ahead.
the laws for stopping at a school bus,
Passing school buses,
passing a
right,
school
yeah.
bus and stopping at a student pickup. Technology's there today that if somebody violates the stop arm, we can film them and get their license plate.
Which is a serious violation.
Oh.
Under Pennsylvania law, you're lined up for a good fine, points, and a loss of driving privilege.
Absolutely. The whole thing comes back to, again, we want the school bus to be the safest environment possible. The inside of the bus, as an industry, we kind of have that figured out.
Right.
Very safe. We talked about the compartmentalization, the padding, the escape hatches, you know, and everything, and like the tempered glass. You know, it just goes on and on and on. How we have the bus controlled. The danger zone in the bus is 10 foot around the bus. That's what we struggle to control, and because we have to stop and load students out in the environment safely. So we put all these safety items in. We have a stop arm now that comes out on the side of the bus to alert motorists. We have the 8-light system, you know, yellow and red light warning system. One of the better safety items that came out in the last several years is what we call the crossing arm, that on the front of the bus, mounts on the front bumper. And what that does, it's just a simple arm, comes out, and it forces the students to walk out in front of the bus. So it's for the visibility thing. You know, like when they walk right along the bumper, the driver loses sight of them, and also the motorists lose sight. You know, if you're stopped, you can be stopped, you know, in a legal, observant way, and boom, there, you know, you think all the kids came across, and now there's one more. So that's been a great help too.
Have you ever heard about privacy concerns in terms of filming or listening to what's going on? I just think as a driver, someone who's actually been behind the steering wheel of a bus, it would tend to prevent problems if students know?
Yeah, I think the privacy thing, and this might be a political statement from me, post 9/11, I think the country's more interested in security than privacy.
There's not an expectation of privacy either entering a school bus. I would
with
think.
72 kids. I mean, it's not
There's nothing private.
It's almost like a Reading Phillies game. You're there, and there's going to be a lot of people there. I think we're more concerned with the security and safety of the students, and it's there to. It's a tool. And the technology's here. It's a great tool. It's a great tool, and we accomplish many more things. And the students have plenty of private time.
I was driving by your property just a couple days ago. I went over to Ed's place to get a snack, something to eat at Weaver's Orchards, and I just looked at the footprint of the buses and the capital investment that has to go into school buses and transportation, and it's enormous. We only have a couple moments here at the end. I often wonder, how in the world does this guy make a profit in transportation? How does that work? A little bit of the formula for you making this successful, keeping students safe.
Well, again, I also have to thank my friends at Susquehanna and Customers Bank. I'm one of their best customers. But to that end, like again, I'm a private contractor. 80% of the buses in Pennsylvania are supplied by private contractors. Okay. 20% would be district or LEA owned, where the local education would own. As private enterprise, the state actually has what they call state formula regarding transportation, which funds the districts for transportation. And the state formula is an extremely interesting formula that has survived for years and does exactly what it's intended to do, is provide transportation for all the students. Okay, and there's if I can just take a minute
I want you to. Go ahead.
to tell you how the formula works. It encourages efficiency, which is kind of crazy for this town to get a formula that encourages efficiency. So basically, you're reimbursed by the size of the bus, the VIN number, which would be the vintage of the bus. The newer the bus, the more dollars the district gets back. The more that they load it to capacity, the more dollars the district gets back. So if you have a 72 passenger bus, they want you to put 72 passengers on it, okay, which is efficiency. That's what we want to do. And then you're also rewarded for the mileage that you put on the bus, and there's a factor for loaded miles versus unloaded miles. Unloaded miles are no good. Loaded miles are good. And they want you to use your equipment, so the more miles you put on, the more the district gets. And then they also have an urban route, suburban route factor in there, so they recognize that if you're in an urban environment, you're not going to make the time that you will, or have the opportunity to put the miles on that you do suburban.
Right.
Okay. And then at the end of the day, there's a multiplier that they also realize that every district is not in the same financial shape.
Sure.
So there's a formula there that some of the poorer districts get a little higher reimbursement for there, but it works good. It helps us to deliver a good product, that formula.
But it strikes me that the area of the county that we live in is relatively rural, and to get that many young people on the bus, and the formula-driven part you mentioned, there is a suburban or rural component, would strike me that maybe some kids have a little bit longer bus ride.
Well, you start early. That's what you do. You start earlier. Our first bus leaves our operation probably. Well, we had one leave 5:30 a.m. this year. That was like a special. Mostly 6 o'clock is when we start. But I think, don't they do studies that the kids are more alert in the morning or something like that? So we.
Do you ever get any pushback on those early times from people in the community or the parents? Hey,
Yes.
Greg,
What you got to do?
come on now.
You just drive bus some morning, and you'll see. Some people they need their second cup of coffee to get going.
We've got less than a minute. Let's make Gregg Eshelman the state representative. What law does he want passed in Harrisburg? What change would he like to see? Or what nipping of a law, or too much of this or too little of that?
Man, that's going to take me a couple days to
Okay,
to
so
lay
we don't
that
have
on
we don't have 45 seconds.
For busing, the bus industry is fine. Okay, where our challenges is to accommodate our buses. There's some like local zoning ordinances and stuff that that is more of a challenge.
Backyard.
Right, backyard. The other thing that, in my 1 minute yet, I would like to see the background checks of our drivers. We presently do 5 or 6 background checks, all the way from an FBI criminal to state child abuse. I would like to see them consolidated into one source and one background check.
We're revisiting that law.
You're my best friend if you can get that done.
Representative Eshelman, we might take care of you with that.
Okay.
We're taking a harder look at that.
If you need me for a couple of weeks, I'll be here.
Okay. That's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen. If you need assistance with any state matter, please feel free to contact me at my local office or through my website. The address and number will be shown in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me next time for Legislative Report.